learn a lot. Pray you bless all the kids that aren't here yet. Lord, I pray that all the kids that registered would be able to come during the week and that you bless them. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so ethic theories. Can somebody tell me what is ethics? What is ethics?
Like right and wrong?
Yeah, it's like the study of right and wrong. Morality and ethics, there is a difference. It's a subtle difference. And because it's so subtle and because I always forget what it is, we're just going to use them interchangeably, okay? If you're actually in college, there is a major difference, but I can't ever pay attention to what it is. And for you guys, you probably don't know the major difference. So we're just going to use them interchangeably for this, okay? So this is ethic theories. Now, the high school cafe times are really, really cool sessions because I really think for high schoolers, you're coming into a time where you're asking a lot of questions. And these sessions deal with issues that I think are really relevant, but they're a lot more, kind of adult in content. I'm not going to say anything that you wouldn't like see on TV or something like that, but just want to let you guys know that in case you're like, oh man, I'm, not up for that, okay? All right, so tonight it's going to be pretty mild though, okay? So we're going to look at 3 major ethic theories, and the third one having 3 different types of theories. Now, the first one is absolute morality. Now, absolute morality is that we all have an internal sense of morality that is transcendent of culture and the individual. Meaning this is that culture doesn't define what is right and wrong. That there is something inside every human being around the world that tells us what's right and wrong, that comes from something outside of the universe, okay? So either God, some kind of God, okay? That's absolute morality. So Christianity falls under that, Islam falls under that, Judaism falls under that, and then some of the cults fall under that. A lot of Eastern religions fall under another type of morality, but absolute morality, that's what I believe is true, absolute morality. And the reason I'll show you why is because all these other ones, they just don't make sense, okay? So the next one is instinct, the instinct theory, or instinct morality. Can anyone tell me what you think this is, instinct morality? What do you think that is? A lot of scientists believe it.
Like a gut feeling?
Okay, gut feeling, that's good, yeah. We have a sense of right and wrong because nature gave it to us. Evolution accounts for our universal moral code, okay? So the idea here is that as we evolved into higher beings, we all got our own sense of morality, okay? And that evolution has in a way, helped us to get morality. Now, this doesn't make sense because of a couple reasons. So the first one is conflicting urges. We all have conflicting urges. Which one should we follow, right? So if it has to do with that gut feeling, like Sammy just said, or that instinct, well, what about when sometimes you really, really, really want to eat like a gallon of ice cream, but then at the same point you know that I probably shouldn't eat this gallon of ice cream, right? So which one's right and wrong? There's no way to tell you what's right and wrong because you can have in yourself desires to do both, right? You can have the desire to want to lie and a desire to want to tell the truth, okay? So there has to be one that's right or wrong. Otherwise, it just changes based upon how you feel, okay? Preservation. If nature gave us our sense of morality to preserve the human race, then wouldn't certain actions such as rape be right if they helped to pass on my genes to the next generation? Some people say, well, it's instinct morality is that evolution gave us based off the fact that we have a desire to preserve, meaning to keep people alive, those kind of things. But then it's like, well, there's a lot of things that we could do to preserve race, to preserve life, or to create life. Rape would be acceptable under this worldview, and so it doesn't make sense. Morality is hard. If it's natural, and it's supposed to be natural to us, then why is it so hard to do the right thing, okay? So these are 3 reasons why we know that the morality of evolution giving it to us doesn't make any sense. You guys have any questions on that? or disagreements with what I'm saying so far? Okay, you guys will be easy tonight, sweet. All right, actually I do like to be challenged too. But relativist theory. Okay, now this is going to be the primary one we're going to look at. This book right here is where I'm getting a lot of my information, Relativism, Feet Firmly Planted in the Air by Greg Koukl. This book, if you guys ever want to read it, it's really interesting, but it's kind of dark. Like, first chapter is like, you're like, I can't. It's like really intense. But it just shows how relativism has caused our culture to kind of fall apart. So what is relativism? Can someone tell me what relativism is?
Right, like, doesn't really matter what you believe. What's true for you is true for you.
Yeah. What is true for you is true for you, but not true for me. All views and points are equally as valid. Okay? So all sense of morality. So all views of right and wrong are equally valid, is basically what relativism is. The freedom of our day is the freedom to devote ourselves to any values we please on the mere condition that we do not believe them to be true. Okay? The freedom of our day is to devote ourselves to any values we please on the mere condition that we do not believe them to be true. That's totally our culture, right? You can devote yourself to anything you want. You just can't hold that it's the only way. Does that make sense? Now, this is completely absurd because in reality, you can't have multiple views and all be right when they're saying different things. Okay? So, now this is where it's going to get a little bit more technical. There's 3 types of relativism. And as we talk about the 3 next issues for the 3 next nights, abortion, and sex before marriage, homosexuality, transgenderism, and drugs and alcohol are the things we're going to be talking about the next couple nights. It'll be important to remember these worldviews because you'll start to see as we just look at these different worldviews that you can find yourself buying into relativism. So society does relativism is the first type of relativism. This is called cultural observation. And it lays out like this. Every society has different morals. None is justified in claiming its own brand of morality is correct. Therefore, there is no objective morality nor any moral absolutes. So this is society does relativism. So basically it looks at like there are people in the Amazon that when you get old, the honorable thing to do is kill them, okay? And if you will not kill them, it's dishonor upon your family if you do not kill like your dad or your grandpa once they get to a certain age. Now in our culture, we'd be like, that's absurd. They have a lot of life to live. And when I say old, I'm saying like 50s, 60s, okay? Now, society does relativism would say it's okay for these tribes in the Amazon to put to death their elderly because it's okay for them, but for us, it's not okay. So that society does relativism. Because different cultures do it, therefore, there is no moral absolutes. Okay, now what is the argument against this? How different is every society really, though? Because people think, well, if every culture is different, and we're so opposed in our worldviews, then how is it possible that there's something outside of us that is telling us what is right and wrong? Does that make sense? That's what they're thinking. But the reality is how different is each society really when we look at it. C.S. Lewis said, if anyone will take the trouble to compare moral teaching of, say, the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, Hindus, Chinese, Greeks, and Romans, what will strike him will be how very little they are to each other and to our own. Men have differed as to whether you should have 1 wife or 4, but they have always agreed that you must not simply have any woman you liked, okay? So there is like differences, but on the overall theme is that people value life, they value faithfulness, they value honesty, they value love, and it can get skewed in a very dark way, in other cultures and different worldviews, but for the most part, we all agree on the basics, okay? Now, how does it follow that because each group thinks it's right, therefore no group is correct? Think about that for a second. How does it follow that each group thinks it's right, therefore that no group is correct? The simple fact of disagreement on morality does not lead to the conclusion that there is no moral truth. It only shows difference of opinions, not that the opinion is correct. The only thing one can safely conclude from anthropology is that people have different points of view about right and wrong. That's all, nothing more, okay? Just because we have different views doesn't mean that no one's right, okay? One of us could be right, okay? So point number 3. It denies objectivity. Every attempt to win an outside standpoint from which to reduce the whole to an absolute philosophy of truth and right based on unalterable principle is delusion. Okay, there's an example they give, and let's see if I can find it really quick. Should have bookmarked this, sorry. Okay. The blind man, or the six blind men, and the elephant, okay, is this story. And it's an Eastern story. And it says, in the children's book, The Blind Man and the Elephant, Lillian Quigley retells the ancient fable of 6 blind men who visit the palace of Raja and encounter an elephant for the very first time. Each touches the elephant with his hand. He announces his discovery. So you got 6 blind men. They meet an elephant for the first time, and they're reaching out and touching the elephant. The first blind man put out his hand and touched the side of the elephant. How smooth. An elephant is like a wall. The second man put out his hand and touched the trunk of the elephant. How round. An elephant is like a snake. The third blind man put out his hand and touched the tusk of the elephant. How sharp. An elephant is like a spear. The fourth blind man put out his hand and touched the leg of the elephant. How tall. An elephant is like a tree. The fifth blind man reached out his hand and touched the ear of the elephant. How wide. An elephant is like a fan. The sixth blind man put out his hand and touched the tail of the elephant. How thin. The elephant is like a rope. An argument ensues as each man makes a claim for his own perception of the elephant. The Raja, awakened by commotion, calls out from the balcony, "The elephant is a big animal. Each man touched only one part. You must put all parts together to find out what an elephant is like." Enlightened by Raja's wisdom, the blind man reached an agreement. Each one of us only knows a part. To find out the whole truth, we must put all the parts together. So, here's what they say. Is they say everyone has a different part. We all have a different piece of the truth. But the reality is, they were all wrong, too, right? To have a part of it is not, and to not have the whole is wrong. So, it denies objectivity. All right. So society says relativism. Society says relativism. Now, this is a little bit different. So here's how it goes. Every society has different morals. Every individual should do what is right in his society. Therefore, there is no object morality, and one society ought not judge another's morality. So instead of it being like every culture is different, there is no moral objectivity, this view is that there is a sense of moral objectivity. It's your own culture, okay? Meaning that within the United States, we have our own laws. We should follow those laws, okay? So here's the argument against this type of relativism. Society does not exist, neither does morality. Conventionalism, that's what this is called. Conventionalism makes it impossible to criticize another society's practice. No matter how bizarre or morally repugnant they may seem to us, if there is no law above society, no external standard, then society cannot be judged. And the next question is, which culture is primary? The moral convictions of one religious community may be at odds with the demand of the business community. Which group is primary? So basically it's saying within your own culture, you need to hold to the values of that culture. But the thing is, well, if a religious community and a business community within the greater community of the United States is disagreeing, which one do you hold to, right? Because we find ourselves within subcultures and grand cultures, and so which one is it, okay? And then it comes to something kind of scarier too, is that after that it comes to majority or power at that point, because then it's no longer just like what society says. It becomes might makes right. The most powerful person decides what's right. During the Nuremberg trials, which was when they were prosecuting the Nazis and holding them accountable for their crimes, one of the statements that one of the commanders said was, "We did not violate any of our own laws." They did not break a single law according to German laws. So they said, within our own culture, we did what was right. We as Nazis did what was right according to what the power was saying at that time. But then the response was that there is a higher power than you. And he says that you are not right. And so they appealed to God to be able to prosecute them. So, if there's nothing higher than a nation, then might makes right, and that's a scary thing. And we realize that just because you have power doesn't make you right. Just think about bullies, No immoral laws. You might not like it, but it's the law. It may be the law, but is it moral? Is it moral? When any human court is the highest authority, then morality is reduced to mere power, either power of government, of power, or power of the majority. If courts and laws define what is moral, then neither laws nor not governments can ever be immoral, even in principle. Does that make sense? So if the society decides what is right and wrong, then governments can't be right or wrong because there's nothing higher than them to be able to determine what is right or wrong. Okay? This is a really interesting quote. It says, man, I need to fix that. All right. The 20th century gave rise to one of the greatest and the most distressing paradox of human history, that the greatest intolerance and violence of that century were practiced by those who believed that religion causes intolerance and violence. What's interesting is if you study the 20th century history, you look at the Nazis and the socialists, and all these people who tried to put an end to religion. They were the most intolerant groups, the darkest groups. There'll be the claim that will say that more people have died in the name of religion than in any other cause. And the truth is that that's not true. If you look at the 20th century and add up between the Ming dynasties and the Nazis and all of the different atrocities committed by atheistic cultures, the numbers are astounding how many people they killed. All right, point number 5. A moral reformation is impossible. To improve a society's moral code means that the society can change its laws and values to more closely approximate to an external ideal. If such standard exists, if a culture values are the highest possible law, then there is no way for those standards to be better than what they were at any given moment. The society can abolish apartheid in favor of equality. It can adopt policies of habeas corpus, protecting citizens against unjust imprisonment, can guarantee freedom of speech in the press. But according to this view, no one could ever claim that these are moral improvements, but only that society has changed its tastes. This is what it's saying, is that you could outlaw slavery. You could make equal rights for all people, but you could never say that that's better. You can just say that it's changed, okay? All right, here's the last type of relativism, and this is the most common one and the most illogical one, which is I say relativism. Every person has different morals. Every person's morality is private. Therefore, there is no objective morality nor any moral absolutes, and an individual should not judge another's morality. Okay, so here's the argument against it. It denies moral intuition altogether. Now, I don't think I'll have time to describe what that means, because when I first read this argument against it, I was like, what is he saying here? But I'll read it to you and maybe you'll grasp it. C.S. Lewis said, if nothing is self-evident, nothing can be proved. We must know certain things immediately, directly, in order to have the tools to learn other things. The mind grasps them instantly, and all inferential knowledge flows from them. If we always have to give justification for everything we know, knowledge would be impossible, because we could never answer an infinite series of questions. Here's the example. You say, I hurt my hand. We'd be like, how do you know that? Well, because I feel pain. Well, how do you know that you feel pain? Because I feel it in my hand. Well, how do you know you're actually feeling it? Right? There's a point where things have to be self-evident. Does that make sense? There's a point where things just have to be known to be able to know other things. Does that make sense? Like you know that you exist. You know that you feel. You know that you see. You know that you hear. There are modes of understanding that have to be accepted to be able to understand other truth. Does that make sense? Okay? All right. It doesn't work practically. Okay? Doesn't work practically. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Whenever you find a man who says that he does not believe in right and wrong, you'll find the same man going back on it a moment later. He breaks his promise to you, but if you try breaking one to him, he'll be complaining. It's not fair. Before you can say Jack Robinson, it seems then we are forced to believe in a real right and wrong. People say, I don't believe in right and wrong. I believe in relativism. Right? I heard of one story of a professor who the kid said to him, oh, well, I don't believe in right and wrong. I believe in relativism. There's no such thing as right and wrong. And he said, oh, really? So he went and he took the kid's iPod off his desk and he kept it. And the kid was like, at the end of the class, was like, well, can I have my iPod back? He's like, no, I'm taking it. I believe that it's okay to steal it according to my own morality. And he says, but that's not what? And he goes, see, you can say that you believe that there's no right and wrong, but the moment that you go to object to it, then you have a form of morality. Okay? The sociopath is just as valid as the saint. For to deny the existence of universally objective moral distinctions, one must admit that Mother Teresa was no or more or less moral than Adolf Hitler. That torturing 3-year-olds for fun is neither good nor evil. That giving 10% of one's financial surplus to an invalid is neither praiseworthy nor condemnable. That raping a woman is neither right nor wrong. And that providing food and shelter for one's spouse and children is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. So under I say relativism, you can't say, well, that person's a saint or that person's a sociopath. Those, those who deny obvious moral rules, who say that murder and rape are morally benign, that cruelty is not a vice and that cowardice is a virtue, do not merely have a different moral point of view, they have something wrong with them. This is one of the saddest quotes. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the gleanings be fruitful. The quintessential relativist is a sociopath, one with no conscience. This is what relativism produces. Oh, that's harsh. Can someone tell me what a sociopath is? Anybody know? What's a sociopath? Anybody know? You guys know what a psychopath is?
Yeah.
What's a psychopath?
Somebody that's mental, like.
Yeah,
crazy.
lost their mind, right?
Yeah.
A sociopath is somebody who has no sense of right or wrong, right? Like serial killers and things like that. But the reality is I say relativism that there's no such thing as actual true right and wrong. That's truly a sociopath in that sense. Okay, so here's the 7 fatal flaws of moral relativism. If you went last year, you have it on the back of your shirt. So maybe you want to pay attention so when someone asks you at the grocery store, you can answer them. Relativists can't accuse others of wrongdoing. Why? Because once you say, hey, that's wrong, then you're saying there's right and wrong, okay? Relativist is the ultimate pro-choice position because it legitimizes every personal choice, even the choice to be a racist. This is the first law of relativism. When right or wrong are a matter of personal choice, we surrender the privilege of making moral judgments on others' actions. But if our moral intuition rebels against these consequences of relativism, we're sure that some things must be wrong and that some judgments against others' conduct are justified, then relativism is false. Okay. As things are now, everything is up for grabs. Nevertheless, napalming babies is bad. Starving the poor is wicked. Buying and selling each other is depraved. There is such a thing as evil. Altogether now, says who? God help us. Relativists can't complain about the problem of evil. There is no true evil to discuss, only differing opinions about what is pleasant or unpleasant, desired or not desired. So when someone says, if they say they're a relativist, and they say, well, I believe that morals change from person to person, they can't say, well, why does God allow pain and suffering and evil in the world? Because evil is just a illusion. Relativists can't blame or accept praise, right? Because if there's no ultimate standard, you working hard in school or you cleaning up around the community is neither good nor bad. It's just personal, okay? Relativists can't make charges of unfairness or injustice. The masses blink and say, we are all equal. Man is but man. Before God, we are equal. Before God. But now this God has died. It's Friedrich Nietzsche, which you guys might know. It's one of the, what's the best word? Prolific atheists of all time. He said, because God is dead, we've lost all quality, is basically what he's saying here, very bluntly. Relatives can improve on their morality. The moment you say that one set of morals, ideas is better than another, you are in fact measuring both by a standard, saying that one of them conforms to the standard that is more nearlier than the other. You are in fact comparing them both with some real morality, admitting that there is such thing as real right, independent of what people think, and that some people's ideas get nearer to real right than others. Okay? So, let's see. Number 6. Relatives can't hold meaningful moral discussions. I heard once that, so when you're having moral discussions, you're comparing, right? So if you're a relativist, the moment that you open your mouth, you're no longer a relativist, okay? The only thing a relativist can do is stay quiet, right? For example, I have a family member that's a relativist, but they are so against Christians, right? They think Christians are closed-minded and bigots and haters, judgmental hater, basically, right? And so, but what are they saying? They're saying that what Christians are is wrong. What is that? That's an absolute standard, okay? So those who don't believe in that there is no absolute morality, believe in an absolute morality, that there is no morality. See how it contradicts itself? All right. And then number 7. Relatives can't promote the obligation of tolerance. They can't say to be tolerant. You know why? Because what are you tolerating if there's no right or wrong? Tolerance means to put up with somebody. There's nothing to put up with if there's no right or wrong. So, real reason that people are relativists. Some people will object to the characterization. They wish to keep the label moral regardless of their ethics. How dare you say that I have no morality, they protest. I have morality. I do whatever I please. That's my morality. That's our point. Those who are relativists do whatever they want. Doing whatever one wants is not morality. Morality is doing what is right, not necessarily what's pleasant. When morality is reduced to personal taste, people exchange the moral question, what is good, for the pleasure question, what feels good. They assert their desires and then attempt to rationalize their choices with moral language. So the real reason that people are relativists is they want to do what they want. It's not because it makes sense, because relativism doesn't make sense. And you're like, I don't even know what relativism is. Well, the reality is that most people in your school probably are relativists. Like, really? I didn't know that. They never even labeled themselves at it. What I have found is in most conversation with teenagers, at least in my experience in the last 9 years, is most people be like, well, you're not supposed to judge anybody. Or, well, that's true for them. And what I have found is that people don't even realize that they're believing in relativism, and they don't even see its flaws. And that's why I try to teach this message right now, is because when you live contrary to truth, there's consequences for it. Relativists realize that they can't live in a world without ethics, so they come up with theories to appease their conscience, right? So they realize, gosh, I have to have a morality. Why? Because I want to make sure that my family's protected. I don't want people stealing from me. I don't want people killing me. But I also want to be able to do what I want when I want to do it, right? So you guys see the options here? You can either believe in absolute morality or relativism. But relativism changes from person to person and it makes no sense, okay, at all. So there has to be an absolute morality. Now, what is that absolute morality? That's what we'll get to in the coming days, okay? So there's the ethic theories. Any questions, comments, confusion? Okay, so let me ask you a question. What is relativism? You want to tell me?
You don't believe in right or wrong?
Yeah, okay. All right.
It's like when people believe that what's right for them is right for them, but it's not necessarily right for anyone else.
Yeah, it's subjective, okay? So it's the idea that morality is subjective. That gets back to our up here. Huh? Preference, remember? And so remember how I said like sex before marriage is that objective or subjective? Right? Now, that's getting back to my point earlier, is that if it's subjective, that would be relativism. Okay? And relativism doesn't make sense because of all the reasons I just gave. So, if it's a morality question, sex before marriage is right or wrong, then it's an objective truth. It either is wrong or it's okay. Does that make sense? Okay, and so then that's what we're going to be delving into in the coming days. If you guys have any questions on this, you can ask me afterwards. All right, so this is what we'll do right now, since we have an hour and 20 minutes before your parents pick you up, or maybe they're picking you up early. We're going to go have some ice cream, and then we'll play some games. All right, cool.